Derby County face a tough task in the FA Cup as they head their way to Leyton Orient in a rescheduled game that was supposed to be played on the weekend. Now, obviously, Derby County going into this one, when you look at their away form, it has been very, very poor. And obviously, we have to talk about the caveats with the squad. With illness running right through Moor Farm, Derby County will potentially have a ton of academy players in their squad. 5 have been mentioned by Paul Warne. But if we do look at Derby County over the course of this season so far, the away form has been absolutely diabolical. In the Championship, it is just 1 win and 4 draws, 9 losses in 14 games, scoring 12 goals, conceding 24 with 0.5 points per game. And that is obviously horrific for Derby County, for anybody to look at. Away from home, we can't score, we concede tons of goals, and it's just not very good. But what can Paul Warne do? What can the coaching staff do? Now, if we go back to the Coventry City away game, which was our one and only away win of the season, we went to a 3-5-2 with Dejan Brown and Jerry Yates up front. And yes, it worked well. I say it worked well that night. I don't believe we were the better side on the night. I think we got very, very lucky with that victory. It was a good win. Jerry Yates stole the show. 2 brilliant goals for him, which put us in the position to win the game. Now, one of them took a deflection, and ultimately it saw the end of Mark Robins' time at Coventry. But since then, and before then, Derby County had really struggled away from home. And they're always in the games. There's not many games that we're out of. Leeds United is the only one that I can think of where Derby County weren't really in it. And in my opinion, that was because of how Paul Warne set us up. And for me, what we need to do is we need to go for it. We need to have a go. Now, if we look at the home table first to start off with, you'll obviously have just seen on the screen the difference between home and away form. So at home, 12 games played, 6 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses, 19 goals scored, 11 goals against, 1.67, which you'll have seen on the board already. Now, if we look at the away table, the home table, to start off with, Derby County find themselves 14th in the division with 20 points at home. Now, that is really good for Derby County, and a lot of people expect Derby County to potentially be a mid-table side, maybe even a little bit lower than that. Now, for me, I think we should finish anywhere between 18th and maybe 12th, in my personal opinion, based on how we've played so far this season. And some people will sound deluded, some people will say I'm miles off base, we're not that good. But ultimately, I think a lot of the games we've lost, especially at home, we should have picked up at minimum a point in there. You look at Swansea, Sheffield Wednesday, Norwich, all games in which we should have picked up points. Hull City, Plymouth Argyle should have picked up more points in those games as well. And for me, this is where, when we're looking at the table, it's very, very difficult to see, because we find ourselves, home form alone, we're 4 points safe from the relegation zone. Now, if we move over to the away table, which you'll see on screen right now, it's 7 points in 14 games, which is It's a travesty. It's disappointing. We're 1 point away from the drop zone in away form, and the teams below us are Pompey, Oxford United, Luton Town and Plymouth Argyle. Now, 1 win for Derby County could move them all the way up to 15th place in the away form table, and it would also move us in the actual league table up a few places as well. Now, obviously, this game that we're playing against Leyton Orient is an away game, but it's obviously in the FA Cup. No points on the board, but there is a chance to get through to the next round. Now, ultimately, I don't necessarily care if we go through or not, but I want us to put in a good performance. I want us to give youth an opportunity, and that's what I want to see from Paul Warne. But we need to find a formula away from home. And if that means winning away at Leyton Orient with a Bodge side, trying a system, then I'm absolutely all for it. Because for me, there's a lot that Derby County can do across the course of this season where their away form will need to be improved, and things will need to be improved if we want to stay in the division. Now, the league table itself doesn't look too shabby. I believe we're 4 points away from that relegation zone. It might be 5 points, something around that, and which is obviously decent. We've got a game barrier essentially. We have to lose 2 games, they have to win and draw to be able to go above us, and that is completely fine. I'm fine with that. But Derby County don't have the squad depth, they don't have the squad quality in order to be able to really push to go further in this division at the moment. And that's why the transfer window is so key, and that's why I think the signing of Sam Smith or Richard Kone could be absolutely massive. You obviously look at a potential signing of Louis Barry. These are 3 signings which ultimately change the perspective of our squad. Having a Louis Barry in the squad over a Tom Barkhazen, for me, is a massive improvement. Having a Richard Kone instead of a James Collins, for me, is an improvement. Having a Sam Smith over a Dejan Brown is an improvement. Now, obviously, Dejan Brown in a few years' time may be absolutely brilliant for Derby County, but ultimately, right now, he's not at the level where Paul Warne is willing to let him start games and risk him more often. He's obviously scored 1 goal this season. I believe it was against Hull City, the equaliser, if I remember correctly, and it was a really good goal, but ultimately has not had the opportunities to be able to continue moving forward and keep pushing with that potential form he could have had. Yes, he came off after about 10-15 minutes after he scored that goal because he picked up a bit of a knock, but ultimately he was in the squad for the next game, so he must have been available to play. So it's really interesting for me because these players could have an impact on our away form, in my opinion. We've obviously lost Sonny Bradley, which means the 3-back formation at the moment, unless we plan on using Jake Rooney as a right centre-half, the 3-back formation has sort of gone to pot because, in my opinion, you can't play Fozzie as a wide centre-half because he's not quick enough. Nat Phillips isn't quick enough to play as a wide centre-half, and I don't really think Curtis Nelson is. And I love Curtis Nelson and Erin Cashin. I quite like Nat Phillips at the minute, and I love Fozzie, but ultimately I just don't think they're at the level to be able to be playing those wide centre-half positions. I don't think we have the pace in the back line to be able to do that. Obviously, with the likes of Elder and Wilson at the wing-back roles, I do think we have that covering pace, but ultimately, if you're playing a 5-back, you want those wing-backs to go forward to offer extra numbers, because then at points you can have essentially 8 players attacking, 3 players sitting back essentially, because one of your centre-backs can step in, your midfielders step up, your wing-backs step up, and then your 3 forwards can move in as well. So it's very interesting to see what Derby County will do, and I think this game versus Leyton Orient is going to be a massive tell as to how Derby County are going to go moving forward. Not necessarily for the squad, but potentially the system that they play, because I think it will be, in my opinion, it's probably going to be a 3-5-2 again, but ultimately I don't think we can play that at the moment, with obviously losing Sonny Bradley and Jake Rooney ultimately not playing anytime soon. Well, he could play this game really, but it's going to be interesting to see what Paul Warne chooses to do. Now, if you haven't done so already, let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because it is that athletic ability of the wide centre-backs which ultimately is taken away from us being able to play that 3-5-2, and that's ultimately why I think a lot of teams now are falling into those 4-back positions, because the centre-halves, the defenders that are now available, don't have the athleticism or the pace or the power really to be able to shut down those wide players like they have done in the past, and that is going to be really interesting to see. There's obviously a lot to talk about in that sense. We'll be back later today with a video talking all about Derby County's transfer budget. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next video.